Hey babe, well, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, I'm Treasure, your new favorite mental health girly. Welcome babe. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any videos. Welcome back to the last and final episode of Depression Diaries. I am excited for this episode because we're gonna start off in a little bit of a dark space, not trigger warning worthy, but definitely picking up from where we left off. But then we are ending the video in such an amazing space and testimony to someone watching this video. So I am really excited for this last and final episode. I just pray that God talks through me, helps me to say all of the right things. But if you missed the last episode, I will go ahead and link it at the top so you can go watch it and then you can meet us back here. So in the last video, we left off on me talking about when I was just ready to give up. After finding out what triggered my depression and just feeling like I couldn't take any more, like I was just over life. But then I had an encounter with God that no one could tell me any different. I'm sure there are probably people that may watch that episode and feel like, girl, you're crazy to think that actually happened. But in my mind, that is exactly what happened. And I am so thankful for that moment because it was the turning point for me in which I started to look at what I was going through differently. And I feel like it made all the difference for the process. Now, with that being said, I for sure don't want to make it seem like after that encounter, I was just like, oh, great, cool. I know I'm depressed. I'm going to be okay. And I can just go on with my life because now I know that I'm going to get out of this and I'm fine. Like everything's just going to go back to normal, because that definitely is not what happened. I still continued to get worse after that, but the fight was different because I was no longer just fighting for me. I was no longer just fighting for my brother. I was fighting for complete strangers, for people that I didn't know. I was fighting for those people of whoever is assigned to me or to my life, that I was going through this to help them. And that was the fuel that I needed to keep going, even though it was so hard, it was so stressful, and I wanted nothing more than to just not be depressed anymore. But again, it's a process, and every phase that you go through is so important to the process, and trying to rush it, I think probably was part of the reason why I may have experienced it for such a long time, because I was trying to rush the process every step of the way, because it's not a fun experience to go through. But hindsight, I understand, like every single phase that you go through is so vital to your growth, to your journey, to your rehabilitation, becoming the new version of yourself. It's all so important, and there is not one phase or moment that is insignificant. Like every single thing is significant to the journey. I had to make a conscious choice to look at it from different eyes any days that were just extremely hard for me, especially because at this point my mom did not want me to be alone anymore. She was taking me to work with her. I had friends that would come, and that I would be with throughout the day sometimes. Like I was not alone because it just didn't feel safe for me to be alone at this time. And I intensely started praying. My mom would tell me, like, just keep praying, like it'll be okay, like just keep praying. And so I think of all the things that I tried to help me get through depression, praying was probably number one. Like, for sure was number one of things that I did. Like, I was praying every single day, please get me through this day, please get me through this moment, get me through this hour, get me through this next minute. Like, praying was the number one thing that I did, and the number one reason why I was able to fight to get out of it, because I just kept praying. I kept asking God, like, please just help me, please just help me. When I felt like I didn't have the strength, please give me strength. Like, intensely at this point. And eventually it got to a point where I was starting to have depressive episodes. So when I say that, I was having some good days, I was having some bad days. Now, the depressive episodes were very confusing time for me because I didn't understand, again, never been through depression before, didn't know what it was before going through it. And at this time, I started doing a lot of research about what depression was, what, symptoms looked like, how people were experiencing depression, because I wanted to understand like what I was going through. And for me, my depressive episodes were confusing because I would have good days and then I would have my really bad days. But my good days made me feel like I wasn't depressed. Like, I was just, finally, I'm out of it. I can, move on. And then 2 days later, I'm back in a low of depression. And I wasn't understanding like what's happening. I started to get to a point where I felt like, am I faking this? Like, am I not actually depressed? Because how am I going from these high highs, I'm so happy, I have all this energy, to I don't want to get out of the bed, to I don't want to talk to anybody, I want to isolate myself, I just want to be in the dark. What's happening here? And if I can be happy on these days, then I can be happy all the time. Not understanding at the time in doing the research that that depressive episodes is what I was experiencing. And I want to say that I experienced depressive episodes for maybe a year and a half. And they never really got easier for me because I am infamous for beating myself up and feeling like I can always be better at something, I can always do something differently. I wasn't good at allowing myself to feel my emotions during depression. So I did a lot of being angry with myself because I was going back and forth between these depressive episodes, and I just couldn't wrap my head around, this is just what it is. This is just what your depressive episodes look like. It is okay. It's a part of the process. Like, just keep fighting, just keep going through it. Eventually you will come out of it, but stop beating yourself up. Like, stop allowing yourself to be so hard on yourself, because there's essentially nothing you can do about it. This is what it is right now. This is what your life looks like, and that's okay. You have to allow yourself to feel these emotions so you can move on, so you can work through it. But the more you are beating yourself up, the harder it is for you to get through it, the harder it is for you to work through it, the harder it is for you to process. But it just wasn't computing in my brain that that's what I needed to do. So again, that may have prolonged the process because I just was not being patient with myself. I was not being understanding with myself. And it was essential at that point. Like, I needed to be more understanding. I needed to be patient because that was what my mind needed, but I wasn't willing to give that to my mind. I was also going to therapy still at this point in time. I kind of, for a moment, closed down a little bit with therapy after, finding out what triggered me. I was just like, this is a lot. I just, I don't know about this. Like, I don't want to know any more things. I don't want to do EMDR therapy ever again. So I had just went back to regular therapy sessions and just talking about like my day to day, like I'm being so hard on myself because again, at this time, I think at this time I had already started posting content here and there about what I was going through. So I do have some content that's more like in real time of me still being depressed. Not at my darkest moments, I don't believe, but I do have content from when I was going through my depressive episodes that you'd be able to see on here or on my TikTok. And I think maybe my Instagram too, on my Instagram reels. So I was being really hard on myself because at this time, like I knew that I was supposed to be talking about my story. Like God had told me like, okay, you're going to start to move into this part of your purpose where you are posting content and you are going to be in front of a camera and you're going to share your story. And I was being really hard on myself because I was like, one, I don't like to be in front of the camera. Two, you want me to share something that I'm going through that is so personal to me. Like I'm private. You want me to tell all these people what I'm going through? And three, not feeling like I had the wherewithal to do that. Hindsight, all I was supposed to be doing was literally turning on a camera and just saying how I felt, talking about what I was going through. I didn't need perfect lighting. I didn't need the perfect aesthetic. I didn't need the perfect outfit, perfect hair, perfect makeup. Like I just needed to just start talking. But because I had no idea how to do social media, I didn't know anything about it really. I was watching a lot of content of, how do you post on social media? How, what are the things that you do to get, followers or likes or comments or you like those kind of things. And I was getting overwhelmed with the amount of things that people were saying like, oh, well, you need to have this lighting or you need to have this tripod or you need to have this background or you need to sound like this. You need to say these things. You need it was just so much. And because I was depressed, I was going through my own emotions and now I have to learn how to do all of these things. I am just overwhelmed. Like it's just too much. And so I was talking to my therapist about that, like just being overwhelmed and then adding one more thing onto my plate to be hard on myself about, like, again, not giving myself grace, not giving myself patience, like just beating myself up for not being perfect. And my therapist told me, you have an all or nothing personality. And in relationships, that can be great. Like you will give your all to a person 100%, or you're going to give nothing to this person 100%, which can be good in some situations. But you have an all or nothing personality when it comes to trying to reach your goals, and that doesn't work. It can't be all or nothing because nothing is all or nothing when you're trying to reach your goals. Like you have to compromise somewhere. You have to allow yourself to fail. You have to allow yourself to not be perfect. And you're not giving yourself that space, that time or energy. Like you are just trying to have it all perfect while being depressed and going through these emotions. It's just not humanly possible. You're putting too much pressure on yourself. And so then I started to beat myself up about that. Like, oh, I'm putting too much pressure on myself. Why am I doing that? Stop putting so much pressure on yourself. Like it was just thing after thing that it was getting more overwhelming for me. And I was really struggling with staying in therapy because I felt like I was just a broken record. Like I'm just talking about the same thing over and over and I'm not seeing any type of growth. I'm not seeing any change. I'm not feeling any different. Like I felt very stagnant in therapy. And so I decided to not do therapy anymore. All while knowing that at some point I would probably go back to therapy, but in that moment I felt like it was no longer serving me and that I was going to have to get through the rest of this depression on my own. Like I was gonna have to try to figure it out by myself between me and God. Like I was going to have to get through it without therapy, without any other additional help. So I, made the choice, like I said, to stop therapy. So I continued to work through it, to keep, you know, fighting through, praying again. I started reading the Bible a lot. I started journaling. And I just kept posting content as much as I could. I was never really consistent with posting content. I would like post for a week consistently, and then I'd fall off for 3 months, or then post 2 weeks and then fall off for 5 months. Like, I was never really consistent. But at the time, like, I felt like I was doing the best that I could, even though I was being hard on myself about the fact that you're supposed to be posting content and you're not. But I just kept, you know, doing the things that I knew to do, trying to figure out new things to do. And I kept heavily researching everything that I was feeling so I could understand what I was feeling. And I started to incorporate that into the content that I was doing, because at that point, while I was always very self-aware of what I was going through, at that point, I started to be able to be more aware about the fact that I was supposed to be helping other people and not just focused on myself and my own healing. So I started to incorporate the things that I was researching and learning into the content to help anyone else that may have been going through what I was going through, or feeling what I was feeling, and just really walking in my purpose the best that I knew how. And it was like one day I woke up and I wasn't depressed anymore. I can't tell you at what point things changed, as far as, oh, I think I'm actually not depressed. Like, am I still depressed? Like, I can't really say exactly when that change started to happen. But I do know that the day that I was 100% sure that I was not depressed anymore was 1 year ago. Well, a little bit over a year now. Was the day before my birthday. So July 13th, 2023 was the day that I realized, oh my gosh, I'm not depressed anymore. Now, months before that, probably years before that, my mom had told me, one day you will just look up and you won't be depressed. You won't question it. You won't think, am I or am I not? You'll just know. And when she told me that, I'm like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean I'm just gonna know? Like, how am I gonna just know that? And she was like, you're just gonna know that you're not. Like, it's not gonna be a question. And I remember the day before my birthday, I was in the car with my mom and I was talking and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not depressed anymore. I can't believe I'm not depressed anymore. And it was at that moment that I started to think back, like, how long have I not been depressed and didn't realize it? Or how, like when did the change happen? When did the transformation happen to me being in depressive episodes to me now not being in depressive episodes? And I still can't pinpoint it, but I do know that on that day I was 100% sure that I was not depressed anymore. And I was so immensely happy, because it was what I had prayed for. From the day I recognized that I wasn't depressed, I prayed, please take me out of this. Please, God, help me to not be depressed. And in that moment, I realized that I was in an answered prayer. I was not depressed anymore. And it made me so happy, because I felt like now I have gone through this transformation. I'm, starting to learn this new version of me, because now I'm a whole new person. I don't know who this version of me is. I've got to learn things over again. It's like being a newborn baby trying to figure out life again. But you've been dropped back into the real world after being out of the real world for 5 years. Like, boop, there you go. Welcome back. Learn everything in this like quick second. So I definitely, again, I was very happy. And I thought, again, was wrong. I thought that, great, I'm not depressed anymore. Now I can go back to my normal life. Now I can just go back to, everything's great and I am happy, loving life again. That is not what happened. I started to have this great fear of, oh my gosh, am I going to be depressed again? Every little thing was like, oh my gosh, am I going to be depressed? Oh, is this going to trigger me to be depressed again? Oh my gosh, what if I wake up tomorrow and I'm depressed again? Like, it was like, it settled in that I'm not depressed, and then almost immediately was like, oh my gosh, but what if I go back? What if I start to be depressed again? Like, what am I going to do if I get back to that point? And I had to continue to tell myself and to pray and, ask God, like, how do I get rid of this fear? Because living in fear of going into a depression is not a way to live. Like, I know I did not just go through this whole journey of going through depression and, getting out of it to now live the rest of my life in fear that I'm going to go back in. How do I get out of this? But again, it was a part of the journey of going through depression, because there's always a chance that you could end up back there. And God needing me to have that fear of falling back in was not about having the fear of falling back in. It was about me understanding that there's always a possibility that that could happen. But in order to do your best to not let that be a possibility was for you to take care of your mental health on a daily basis. This is why I say taking care of your mental health is not a one-off. It is not, oh, I spent a month, 2 months, 3 months, a year taking care of my mental health and now I don't have to worry about it for the rest of my life. Absolutely not. Taking care of your mental health is something that you have to do every single day with intention. Not just doing things aimlessly, because that is not for your mental health. Everything that you do for your mental health has to be with intention in order for it to work for your mental health. And that is what I started to learn after realizing and recognizing, like, okay, it's not about me being scared that I'm going to be depressed. It's about me understanding the importance of taking care of your mental health every single day. It's something that ever since that moment of realizing that, I spend every single day intentionally taking care of my mental health. And any time that I feel like, oh, that wasn't good for your mental health, that was something that you should not have done, it's immediately in my head as like, that's a red flag, don't do that again. How can we fix that? How can we be better at that? How could we have made a better choice so we don't do that again? Which is something that I wasn't doing before. I wasn't aware of these things. I didn't probably care to even be aware of those things. But now I'm so hypersensitive to everything that I do, because I understand the intentionality that needs to be behind taking care of your mental health, that it's the way that I have to live my life, and the reason why I make content, the reason why I am a mental health influencer, because I am determined, because I know that it is my purpose in life to help people take care of their mental health with intentionality. It is so important, and it is the only way that you can accurately take care of your mental health is to be intentional. With all of that and learning all of that, and also understanding that I am still learning the version of me that I am now, because again, I am like a new person. I had my 1-year anniversary of not being depressed the day before my birthday this year. So July 13th, 2024 was my 1-year anniversary of not being depressed, and I just could not be more elated, because for me, 1 year is like, I have lived in this world for 1 year, not in fear of being depressed, not feeling the emotions of being depressed. Learning and understanding this new version of me is what I have put my energy into, and that I have made it to 1 year of being able to do that and share that with someone, because being able to say that I am 1 year depression free is like a testimony to someone out there that is going through depression right now, that you can make it out. I was depressed for 5 years and I thought that I would not make it. I thought that my life was going to be over. I thought that I was just like, that was the end. I am here, depression free for 1 year. You will make it out. You will get through it. You will be okay. And I know that it is very possible that you don't see the light, you don't see your way out, you can't understand, you can't comprehend, you can't wrap your head around it. I know, I have felt all of those emotions, but I promise you, hang in there, be patient with yourself, love yourself. You will make it out. I am 1 year, more than a year now, free of depression. You will be too. So that is the end of this series of Depression Diaries. It is probably the most vulnerable content that I will ever post, unless God tells me otherwise. But I felt like it was so important for me to do this series, because I don't think that I've ever posted content chronologically explaining the process of my depression. I have done content where it was maybe in real time, in the moment, or briefly discussed or talked about something, but never chronologically. And I feel like that's important for someone who is going through it, who may go through it, that they have a story to follow, to know that no matter how dark it gets, there is light on the other side. And to just be patient with yourself and understand that you will make it out, even if you can't see the light right now. So I am very proud of myself for being this vulnerable. I really genuinely hope that this series helps at least one person. I will be so fulfilled. I am so thankful to God for using me and making this my purpose, because I will get to save someone's life, and that means more than I can even express. So I'm just so thankful. Thank you so much for following this journey, this series, and I will see you guys for future content and in the next video. Love you, babe.